What's the reaction in Germany on this side at the moment?
The reaction is one of shock and embarrassment, because you can get knocked out in a World Cup, but you can't get knocked out the way that Germany did. With a meek performance, with hardly creating any chances against Paraguay, with then messing up the penalty shootout, which was supposed to be our speciality. With the record we had so far in tournaments, we haven't lost one since 1976 in the Euro finals. So if you then look at the three other games preceding this game, you could see that Germany's problems were far more deep-rooted than one specific game with an unlucky refereeing decision. And that's why there's a sense of shock, disbelief, but also in the same way, shock and disbelief that some of the problems weren't a surprise. Some of the issues that we saw throughout this World Cup were predicted. So it was a bit of a slow-motion car crash. And Germans feel, I think, by a large majority that something has to change, and that something usually is the manager to begin with.
Rafa, good morning. Great to see you. I'm curious, how much would you put into the players not doing what they need to do on the pitch in terms of the performance versus the tactics? Because we're all sitting here saying, hey, we know how Paraguay is going to play. They're going to sit back, low block, defend, grind it out. For him to not start Musiala, it felt like as one of the players who's probably better known for playing in tight spaces and generating opportunities, even though he hasn't really performed this World Cup. How much stock would you put into poor tactics versus poor performance?
Well, I think for everything Nagelsmann did at this World Cup, there was a good explanation. There's a good explanation to bring back Manuel Neuer. There was a good explanation to put Kimmich in position because we don't really have anyone of his quality. There's a good explanation why Undav came in. Nagelsmann explained it in detail before the game. He said, look, we feel that we don't have enough people in the box. We feel that our pressing and counter-pressing isn't really on point. We want somebody to be closer to Havertz. And Undav had been performing well, and the whole of Germany had been calling his name, had been screaming out for him to start a game. So I wouldn't put that blame on him. But overall, I think if you look at the whole 4 years of him being there, I think there are a lot of things, a lot of big calls that haven't worked out. And some of the smaller stuff hasn't worked out either. The way he communicated to his players, the way he constantly flip-flopped with Kimmich, for example, who only a couple of years ago he said, he's definitely my starter midfield. And then he wrote back, and then he put him back in midfield, and then he wrote back again. These things, a lack of clarity of vision, lack of clarity of communication, also I think a slight sort of sense of immaturity. National team managers tend to be quite senior people with a lot of experience, who can handle people, who can handle the pressure. At times, Nagelsmann, for me, looked his age. Now, all these reasons might not be enough for a fully functioning, deep, very well drilled Germany team to perform so badly. But I think, as you said earlier in your discussion, he didn't help with some of the problems. He exacerbated them. And a team coach's first mission, if you will, is to strengthen the strengths and deal with the negativity and the problems and the weaknesses that every team has at this level. Every national team, maybe bar the French, has problems. And you need to hide those problems and make sure that your strengths are being amplified. And I don't think Nagelsmann ever managed to do that.
Rafa, guten Morgen. It's Jimmy here. Is this the lowest point for German football in the last, definitely in the last decade? Like, where do they go from here, I guess? Is it player development? Because when I look at the center backs in particular, you used to have Hummels and Boateng, and now you have Schlotterbeck and Tah. And for me, Hummels and Boateng were really prime defenders. And you've had a rich history in pretty much every position. Is it player development? Is it coaching development? Like, where does the DFB go from here, and how do you start to get Germany back to the top?
Look, I think you can always optimize these issues. You can always look at what are the key problems that we have in terms of youth development. Why are we not producing at the moment the kind of wingers that other teams have? I think it's probably the most important position now on the pitch. If you want to wing things, we have lots of number 10s. You can play them in positions like that. You can play Musiala wide, you can play Wirtz wide, you can play Lennart Karl wide. I think he would have made a big difference if he was fit. But of course, these are slight makeshift solutions. The centre-backs, as you said, are not quite at the same level anymore. We have this ongoing problem with centre-forwards now for 30 years. But having said all that, in the past, we had similar issues and we found solutions. We won the World Cup starting with 4 centre-backs and played really defensively. We won the World Cup with Miroslav Klose, who, yes, got a lot of goals, but was never a striker in the mold of Gerd Müller or Rudi Völler or Jürgen Klinsmann, who would lead the line. He would often drop into midfield and be more of a playing striker. We didn't really have wingers at the time either. We had Mesut Özil, we had Mario Götze, we had Andre Schürrle, but we found solutions. And we conceded 4 goals in the entire tournament. Now, you are getting paid to find these solutions, and Germany, for all these issues we just mentioned, still should have had enough to at least get into a last 16 game against France. So, yes, there are issues, structural issues, and Nagelsmann is not at fault for everything, but the things he did control, he didn't control well enough. And that's why I'm not sure this is the lowest point. We've had quite a few, but this is certainly a point where I think the German FA will learn from their previous mistakes. When Löw messed up the 2018 World Cup, they let him continue for a couple of years, and that was a big mistake. When Hansi Flick made the same mistake, if you will, had the same problems in Qatar 2022, they let him carry on for another 2 years or a year and a half before they got rid of him. I don't think they're going to do that again and say, you know what, yeah, it's a sort of thing can happen. Nagelsmann will figure it out. No, I think now Jürgen Klopp will come in, and I think you'll see, at least in terms of the mood and optimism, an uplift immediately.
Yeah, Rafa, it sounds almost like a Das Reboot. How do you say 2 in German? Right? Das Reboot 2. So Jürgen Klopp is obviously the first name that's going to pop up on everybody's screen, right, when you start reading about this. So where does that stand? And would Jürgen Klopp actually be the guy for this group in your estimation?
The last bit is really interesting. Is this a Jürgen Klopp team? Not really. It doesn't have any of the characteristics, I think, that Jürgen Klopp wants. But I think he would find players that would fit it. Does he want to do it? My indications are from people close to him that he would at least listen. And already you can see there's a big clamor. Bild, the biggest tabloid, said Jürgen Klopp now has to come. And he's the obvious names on everyone's list. So the discussion is going to start in the next couple of days. First, the German FA need to tell Nagelsmann it's over. I think they have no other choice, but they haven't done it yet. And then Klopp will have to make a decision. But I think there's a big chance he'll say yes.
Rafa, just curious, do you think Nagelsmann did not do it because obviously he'll get paid if he doesn't resign and he gets fired, versus saying, hey, I'm done, I haven't fulfilled my job?
I think there was an element of that, but also he didn't seem to understand quite the magnitude of the defeat and how low German football was with that. He was talking about it as if Germany had just lost another game. He talked about the specifics, and that was another thing that really shocked a lot of people, how there wasn't that emotional response, but a sense of, well, you know, it can happen. We didn't play well. We need to change. We need to improve. But I think a big part of that was the contractual situation. He cannot resign. To give up 2 years, he has to wait for the German FA to fire him.
Thanks for watching this video from Morning Footy. For all news and insights regarding leagues around the world like EFL, Serie A, and all UEFA competitions, both men's and women's, don't forget to sign up for Paramount+.